Dave, I've got this little itty bitty bald spot way in the back here. Just a small.
Can I just say the phrase itty bitty's doing a lot of work there, Brad? That's doing a lot of heavy lifting. All right.
It doesn't bother me, but I'd rather it not be there than to be there. And my wife bought this stuff called collagen peptides. You ever hear about this? It's a powder that's supposed.
Yeah, sure. I sprinkle it on my cereal in the morning.
Seriously, no, it's what you're supposed to do.
Joking. Is that how
you take a big tablespoonful and it's tasteless, odorless. You put it in your coffee. You don't notice it a bit. And it's supposed to, help you grow fingernails and hair. It's supposed to stimulate fingernail and hair growth. Right?
Okay, all right, yeah.
And so for the last couple of weeks, I've been using this stuff in my coffee to try to get rid of this bald spot. But I noticed, especially doing this show, for the last couple of weeks, now my front is getting thinner. I started these collagen peptides and I'm losing hair. And it's been 2 weeks. I've got the collagen peptides and I'm thinning in front.
Well, now, wait a minute. Isn't that just aging, Brad? That's just aging.
Can't be. I've been doing that for years.
So hold on. So you take the collagen peptides. Have you noticed any change in your fingernails?
No, I don't notice a change in my fingernails or my hair. I think it's just powder. I think it's just talcum powder.
I was going to say, is it possible, Brad, that you, like millions of Americans before you, have fallen for a snake oil that has just completely snookered you into buying $4.99 collagen peptides?
The more I see this stuff thinning out in front, the more I'm thinking I might have gotten taken for a ride.
Can I tell you? So I want to tell you as a friend, I haven't seen you in 2.5, 3 weeks because I was up in Alaska. So I saw you a little bit afterward. But anyway, okay. I haven't seen you for the most part for 3 weeks. Your hair looks fuller. It looks more refreshed, and there's a wave in your front that I haven't seen in years. You look younger, more virile. I mean, I see the collagen peptides is working.
Well, listen, I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. Your eye doctor, you got an appointment coming up soon?
And I got to tell you, the fingernails look a lot like Catwoman. I think Batman should be nervous. I think the collagen peptides are working, Brad. And so on that note, I'm going to say hello, everybody, and welcome to Comic Lab, the show about making comics.
And making a living from comics. I'm the slowly balding Brad Geiger, author.
Oh, don't say it. Don't say it.
Author of the Webcomics Handbook and the creator of Evil Inc.
You know what? Don't look at it as you're balding. Just say, you know how people say, well, there's just more of you to love? There's just more of your scalp to love. That's one way of looking at this,
I actually did a comic strip called Arch Brothers. It only went for like 2 or 3 strips, just kind of trying it out to see if there was any there.
Yeah.
And it was based on me and the 2 boys.
I remember it.
Dad and the 2 kids. And there was in the kitchen where you had those marks on the hallway where the kid is growing, and you put the kid's name and how tall he is, those. And next to that was a circle, concentric circles that just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it turned out they were measuring Dad's bald spot on that wall. And the one kid says, what happens when the circle gets bigger than your head?
That's fantastic. I've never seen that joke construction before. That's great. By the way, did I forget to introduce myself? I don't know if I did that part.
I think it's your turn, yeah.
Oh, is it? What professional. Look at this guy phoning it in. And I'm Dave Kellett, his fully haired friend and cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of Strip. Actually, not fully haired, I have to tell you. You know how I always wear baseball caps? Yeah. I'm noticing more and more as I take the cap off, Brad. It's not, the line is not so forward as it used to be, Brad. I'm not the young chicken that I once was.
It could be the baseball cap. I've heard people in my family blame wearing baseball caps on their hair loss.
I got to tell you, no, that's also just aging. That's just aging.
Yeah.
I'm just getting older.
I guess I can dream, can't I? The one thing that is a dream come true, is that this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, Let's talk hairline. Let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. We have a fun show. We've got an interview with a delightful human being, Jarad Greene, of a cartoonist hailing out of Vermont, and we're going to play that in a second. This was recorded at Comics Camp in Alaska, out in the woods adjacent. So you're going to hear ravens dive bombing us. You're going to see chipmunks coming far too close during the interview. You might hear an occasional logging truck that came rumbling down the valley. But before we do, Brad, do I understand correctly that you're going to your first American Library Association convention in Philadelphia?
And I'm full of questions because I can't not go. It's here in Philadelphia. And you got a free table from the NCS, yes,
right?
The NCS actually got a bunch of tables, so we're going to be in like our own little square. And I've got a table space all set up, and it's kind of like an offer I can't refuse. But in the back of my mind, I'm a self-published guy.
Yep.
For the most part, my distribution is setting up the books to go out through Amazon, right? In other words, long ago, I stopped sending my books out to distribution through Diamond and all of that stuff. Right. And I'm kind of wondering what the best way to make the best use of my time out there would be.
Well, okay, so the good news, bad news is you are in a room of, let's see, I'm guessing the Philadelphia ALA will be about 70,000 people.
Yeah.
You're in a room of about 70,000 people, all of whom love books, right? So like this is an audience that it's low hanging fruit in terms of loving books. The downside of that is these are people that are not paid enough for the skills that they have in life, right? Like these librarians bring a great value to society. Society does not pay them enough. That's a downside. The other downside is they're also there to do the ordering for their library districts.
Right.
And I've been to 2, possibly 3 ALAs now at this point, 3 ALAs. And it is so hard to get them to order for their district because you have to have your books through Ingram or one of the major distributors in order for their invoicing to be efficiently done. There are librarians that will do it. They'll go through the rigmarole to order from you individually. But at the district level, it's really hard for them to order, even if they love your work, which has happened to me. They walk up, they love your work, and they're like, oh, I want to get this Sheldon book into the, the Kentucky library system. Right. And they're like, oh, we can't because we're only allowed to order through these 5 distribution networks. And that's it. They're like, they have to do the paperwork through that. So the way I approached my second and my third ALA, once I understood it, was think of it as a Comic-Con for a little nerdier readers, if that's possible, like more readers than comics readers, right?
Yeah.
And just try to make a profit there, selling books there on the show floor there, not any future ones to librarian districts.
Right.
Because it's too big an ask, is the honest to God truth. So I tend to bring stuff that librarians would like. They love bumper stickers. They love magnets about books or jokes. They love any of your books. It's the same kind of audience for a Comic-Con. You will find an audience there that will love Evil Inc. And because they're librarians and they don't believe in banning books, they will also love your NSFW books. You know what I mean?
I was wondering about that because that was the top on my list. Because also I'm thinking that there's a lot of school librarians there and they're not going to want to touch that kind of thing. But also, even my Safe for Work stuff has adult themes and, grown up language and stuff like that. So it's like I really wondered whether I was just kind of a square peg in a round hole when it comes to ALA.
Yes, you will be, but to almost to a T, librarians, like even librarians from the South, are like, do not believe in book banning and fight it and are great about that, right? They're basically the most intelligent nerds in their community, is what it is, you know? And so they get it. They understand that this is a core aspect of free speech in a society, and so they're great about it. The one ALA that I had the most trouble was, and I've told you this before on the show, is that I got parked like 2 booths down from Raina. And if you want to get completely passed over at an ALA, just get sat next to Raina, and then everyone, it's like the convention, Brad, where you were sitting across from the Playboy Playmates and no one looked to the left. I mean, you want to remind people about that?
I had longtime friends who walked up and down that aisle the entire weekend. Finally, when the Playboy Playmates tore down, they found me and they said, "Where have you been? We've been looking for you all weekend." I said, "Yeah, I know you have. I've seen the back of your head since Saturday morning."
As they go by, Greg.
Yeah, there's no getting his attention at that point.
I would advise you to not sit next to Raina if that happens. But okay, so ALA. So yes, plan to make somewhere between $500 and $1,500 there, especially for a freebie table. You're going to be with the NCS. The librarians are going to know what they're getting into as they walk up to you, because it's probably going to be in an artist or small author section based on past ALAs. You'll go into other sections of the ALA floor show where it's like a company that has 1,000 iPads in a booth all set up, because all they do is they are the software that sells to libraries on how you distribute books digitally, right? And and so then there's another big booth, and all it is metal carts for books, right? And so it's stuff that you 100% would never see at Comic-Con, right? But then there's a whole basically artist alley of small authors, independent authors, and people like you and I. And so the librarians that walk into that area know what they're getting into.
Right.
And they're a little bit more prepared, although you got to remind them that there's no freebies at the table. This is a selling area.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of publishers that are just giving away advanced reader copies, ARCs as they're called, to librarians in order to get them to order 6 months from now. You're not that. So you just have to be for sale, author signing. You got to make your literature clearly marked as for sale, but they'll get it. So yeah, I would mentally go in preparing for, are you there for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days?
Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah. So I would mentally go in saying I'm going to make 500 to 1,000 to maybe $1,500.
Yeah.
And honestly, bring all the stuff that is flat packable. And, I wish, frankly, we had more of our Comic Lab pins have asked me about my so-so art and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you'll do great. You'll have fun. Are there any concerns about it?
No. I really, like I said, I just wondered how I fit into that. Not only, due to the, some of my books being NSFW, but also just being a self-published author. They're going to ask me about distribution, and it just isn't. And I actually thought, well, maybe I've got time to, sign a contract. And I just was like, why? It's just even going through that wouldn't be there. There's such a low possibility of there being a positive return on investment on doing all of that.
Yes,
that it would almost be punitive for me to go through all that process to, let's say, sign a contract with Ingram for distribution, and then have 3 people walk away, promising that they're going to, buy the book for their library when they get back. And then one of them actually does it. I just don't see what the ROI is.
No, it's 100% zero ROI on that nonsense. I just avoid that entirely because you don't want to work with Ingram for what we do. And then also you're right to know that 5 people will ask about it. Yeah. And then 3 people will shake hands and promise you they're going to follow up about it, right? And then 1 person might have done it and probably would have reached a roadblock at their librarian district and so couldn't do it. So it wouldn't be worth it for you. I have had librarians that are genuine fans of Sheldon. They're like, no, I really want to get it into my library. And honestly, Brad, they on their end moved heaven and earth and it still didn't happen. So it's not worth that uphill fight. If you're not Scholastic, you're not getting into the library, So
I should, and what you're saying is kind of look at this as a small comic convention and plan accordingly.
Yes. For the area that you're going to be in, plan for this to feel like an SPX or and by the way, librarians love tchotchkes and useless stuff too. They're going to love the pins and magnets. It's not just that they love books. They're human beings and they're nerds. So they love nerd culture. They're going to love Evil Inc. And also for you, give yourself a break at one point, arrive either a half an hour early or leave a half an hour late, and go over and see the 800-pound juggernaut that is the Scholastic booth, because they will buy out full rows, and this is where Scholastic shines as a comics publisher. You'll see what they're able to do with Kazu and Reina and all of them. And Lucy stuff, and so they're at Juggernaut. You should see their marketing in full force at ALA. Anyway,
I'm looking forward to it.
Let's jump in. Speaking of great cartoonists, let's jump in now to our interview pre-recorded at Comics Camp in Juneau, Alaska. This was an outdoor interview, so I'm going to ask all of our pals listening to be a little forgiving of the audio quality because it's imperfect situation. But I really wanted to get this on tape because Jarad Greene is a cartoonist that I like and respect as both as a person and as an artist.
Yeah.
Jarad works on staff at the Center for Cartoon Studies in Vermont. Brad, you know the Center for Cartoon Studies over in White River Junction. And so Jarad is both a colorist. He's helped color many graphic novels for younger readers, but he's also the author and the illustrator of the graphic novels A-OK and A for Effort. And one of my favorite titles ever, Scullion, A Dishwasher's Guide to Mistaken Identity.
Oh, wow.
Scullion is such a great word in the English language. You never hear it used anymore. And so anyway, so Jarad and I sat down for a deep dive on everything you need to know for the most versatile and powerful tool in cartooning, which is the brush.
Wow.
And the brush is so intimidating for me and for Brad and for everyone who's ever tried it. But if you have the chops to stick with it, everyone says that if you have the chops to stick with it, it becomes the most versatile and powerful tool in cartooning, and that it's well worth the effort.
Yeah.
So I wanted to sit down with Jarad and really do a deep dive on everything you would need to know, start to finish, how you can jump in on using the brush. So let's go right now to that interview. There's the lightest mist blowing. We are about 30 miles outside of Juneau, Alaska?
Probably,
maybe 20 miles out?
Maybe 20 to 30 miles out.
It is one of the rare places in my life where you can have genuine and complete silence.
Yes.
It is.
You're in the forest, but only a brief walk to a beach with mountain views.
Yes. And there is a small but not vanishingly small chance you could encounter a black bear on the walk to your cabin.
Yes.
Which always has me just slightly on edge when I'm alone and I've had a beer at 1 a.m. walking back to the cabin.
Like, how many flashlights do I need?
Yeah, exactly.
Or do I just want to be taken out unknown? I don't see it coming.
Well, so to give everyone listening context, I'm sitting here with Jarad Greene at the Juneau Comics Camp, the Alaska Robotics Mini-Con and Comics Camp. We are just outside of Juneau, Alaska. And I'm going to read Jarad's delightful bio. He's a cartoonist originally from Lutz, Florida.
Lutz. Sorry, I have to stop you.
You know what? That's fair. That's totally fair.
Lutz is for boots, Lutz is for butts. That's what we say.
Okay. Who now lives in the curious village of White River Junction in Vermont, which I've never been to, but I hear is like 2,000, 3,000 people.
It's pretty small.
Yeah. And that is the home of the Center for Cartoon Studies, and which you are currently teaching for the last...
I work on the administrative staff.
Oh, the administrative staff.
I do occasionally guest teach, so brush inking, and I've recently done an intro to watercolor.
Yeah. And one of the beautiful things about the center is, I as an outsider looking in, I would imagine it's kind of all hands on deck on some things in terms of what's needed when. And so both administrators help teaching. I would imagine teaching sometimes helps with administration when in a pinch.
Very small program. There's 7 staffers, and then I think about 10 or 12 faculty. And it's a very close-knit community. Yeah, we all wear a lot of hats.
And everyone who I have ever met who has come out of there, like you said, it's a small community. It's a much-loved family. Well, I shouldn't oversell it. There's always going to be.
It's a small town. You get a little sick of seeing everyone 10 times a day sometimes.
That's right. So, author and illustrator of the graphic novels A-OK, A for Effort, and Scullion, A Dishwasher's Guide to Mistaken Identity. And I've not seen Scullion. Tell me. I know that
was my first book through Oni Press.
Okay.
It's about a castle dishwasher who gets mistaken for a great warrior by a bunch of trolls, and a comedy of errors ensue.
That's a fun twist on Prince of the Pauper. That is great.
Yes.
That's delightful. Okay, so now tell me about A-OK and A for Effort.
So those 2 books are inspired by my life. They're semi-autobiographical fiction. A-OK is set in 8th grade and is about my experience having really bad acne when I was younger and going on Accutane isotretinoin treatment and dealing with the general sort of roller coaster of 8th grade and changing friendships.
Right.
And then the follow-up to that, A for Effort, which you can read without having read A-OK, but you get a little something extra if you have,
right.
Is about 9th grade, starting 9th grade at a new school where you don't know anyone and being very shy, but being in theater class and having to sort of be a fish out of water.
Right.
And dealing with very competitive friends and the pressure from your parents to make good grades.
That's delightful.
Yes.
Can I ask you, because it'll play into our conversation today, specifically about brushwork, how were they drawn? What materials did you use for both books?
So I draw, these days I draw on my iPad. So I draw the penciling in Procreate.
Yep.
And then I print out, I do thumbnails on paper because I feel like I'm a little bit faster. And then
do you photograph and then bring it into...
photograph, or if I happen to scan them, it's usually usually photographing them with my phone is a little faster.
Yeah.
Then I set up a file in Procreate. I draw the final pages in Procreate. I print them out onto Bristol board, ink them traditionally with a brush, scan them back in, and color them in Photoshop.
Now, what's funny is me 20 years ago would have thought that's a bonkers process. Me now thinks I can actually see the value of each one of those stages. You know what I mean? There is something about pencil work in a sketchbook that can be loose and tossed off if needed, but is also like it has value in certain energy moments that you 100% want to bring in digitally.
Totally.
Right? Because sometimes you can't recapture that energy from the pencil unless you're literally tracing over it.
Exactly.
And then you and I both know the resizing possibilities digitally.
Oh my gosh.
The ability to flip, the ability to turn, the ability to tilt it 5 degrees if you need to. That's
you're not like ripping the paper as you're erasing for the 10th time. You're just like, this is just so easy.
And then Meredith Grant, who I don't know if you know.
I've never met. I know her work.
Incredibly talented. But Meredith very kindly showed me the same process, the next step in your process, which is to print it out and then ink over. And for me, the value there was there's still a portion of my income that comes from selling originals. And also, I just physically love putting ink on paper. There's something still. But so talk to me about that part of your process for you.
The inking part?
Yeah.
So I love it. I typically, because people often ask, like, what do I start with? Do you do the panel borders or the balloons? And I always start with the faces.
Yes,
I feel
working way out. Yeah.
Yes, kind of working your way out. Like, if you don't get the face right, it's just like, I might as well print out a new one and start over, because the character acting is so important to me. And then the panel borders I actually do with just a felt tip brush pen. Yeah.
Just to interject, because I'm like you, and I 100% agree with the way you did it. Have you ever seen it's not video, but the filming of Winsor McCay's process from the 20s, I think?
I saw that in grad school at CCS, and I couldn't believe that there was film footage of him drawing.
And it was good.
And it's good. It's like really him drawing, and like, I mean, it just like blew my mind. It's so awesome. And all the stacks of paper. I mean, I think it's kind of like done up a bit.
It's theatrically done. Yeah, they knew what they were doing. But the point that caught my eye and blew my mind was you and I work from the face and working inside out. Winsor McCay starts from, and at least in the sketch that I saw, or at least not discernibly, there was no pencil sketch.
Yes.
He literally just drew the outline straight from ink and worked his way in, which was bonkers to me. I do not understand that level of skill.
And it was proportionate. Like, it was the character.
What it should be.
Yeah. I mean, if I did that, it'd be all wonky, like, oh, the hair's like taking over the face or something. Yeah.
Mistimed sip of coffee there. Sorry about that.
No.
Okay, so one of the reasons why I wanted to, you are a delightful human being and a delightful cartoonist, but I wanted to talk to you because you very kindly did something that we all kind of do at Comics Camp every year, which is you said, hey, I'm going to offer up a little course, 40 to 60 minutes, and we all share whatever skill set that we might have 10, 20, 30, 40% more proficiency than our friends in, and say, hey, I would like to pay this forward. And you very kindly did that with brushwork, which you've done at Mice, I think, and you've done at
CCS, Mice, a couple other places I've just done a little pop-up like inking demo.
Right. And so I wanted to pull you aside because for me, who's I do work digitally and I do work analog, but I've always fallen back, let's say it that way, fallen back on my proficiency with a pen, usually Micron or Faber-Castell Pitt pens. But the brush with ink has always been like the holy grail for me because the rare occasions where it's worked, it's magical.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk first about, for you, what does a brush represent? What can you do with a brush that you can't do with anything else?
Yeah, I worked in tech pens for when I was first starting out.
Tech pens, that's a great way to describe that, yes.
Only use it. I had a brush, I remember when I was a teenager, I think, and it was like, whoa, how do I can't use this thing.
Yeah.
Or I'll fill in spot blacks and that's kind of it.
Yes, exactly.
That's all this is good for.
That's the amateur's first attempt. It's like, great for spot blacks.
And it was, as I later found out, because I found that brush years later, it was like a nice inking brush too. I just didn't know how to.
You had bought the $40 one.
Yeah, or it came in some kit, I think. That my parents had given me, and but yeah, I started noticing a lot of the stuff that I liked at the time. This was like just after college in my early 20s. I was like, oh, it's all brushwork. Like, there's something drawing me to this.
Right.
I think I have to try. Like, how are they getting it so nice?
Right.
Must be some secret here, and so I probably had some brushes and I just like kind of started going for it. And I liked the fact that if I could master it, it would just be like a single tool. Yes, it requires the setup of having like, some water and ink and stuff around.
Loose paper too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would only have to have one tool and you can get a very fine line to a very thick line and you don't have to change tools. And it's just this one object that can do it all.
Right. And for people listening at home, yesterday in your demonstration, and we kind of got there as students towards the end, but you were working with a 7 or a 6 brush, or what were you using?
I usually do like a 3 or 4.
3 or 4. And what I was amazed by was seeing it up close was how fine a line you can get, which I previously did not. I assumed that was multiple brushes being brought into play.
Yes.
And you got, so tell me about that. How is that possible?
If you get a pointed round watercolor, like sable watercolor brush, and it has a nice point on it, like you can get just as fine, like a number 4, you can get just as fine as like a 00. Like at its widest, maybe.
Right. And so there's a couple terms there that I want to unpack, because for people that might not be familiar with brushes, let's talk about what a sable is when you say a sable brush.
So a sable or a red sable, depending on the brand, how they label it, or Kolinsky sable, it's a type of weasel hair. I believe it comes from the tail of the weasel.
And the joke that I was making yesterday was that it was all painfully from the genitalia area of the weasel. That did not go over well as a joke.
Honestly,
that did not go over well as a joke.
I haven't seen the process. It could be anything.
Listen, art is pain, so there we go. But anyway, okay, so it's all from the tail region of the weasel.
Yes, and the reason why it works really well as a brush is it has something called snap to it, or I've seen it described as memory as well.
Which it does have. Yeah, it does.
So it snaps back to a point. That's where that comes from. And so you can keep that fine point as you make like all different kinds of strokes. Like you don't have to keep reforming the point as you're going. Unlike a squirrel hair brush, which is another type of watercolor brush. I don't know if I said it, but sable brush is a watercolor brush. A squirrel hairbrush does not have snap to it, so it sort of retains the shape of the stroke that you just made. So if you're flattening it out, you would have to reform it into that point again.
Right.
And it's not going to last.
And usually you would reform that back into that point again by taking it, like I said, to a second loose piece of paper nearby.
Yes.
And what is the process called when you...
Tipping the brush.
Tipping the brush, And that's kind of, you can, if you're at home, you can kind of imagine a gentle roll while pulling.
Yes, to get the excess ink off so that you don't, when you put down the tip at right at the start of your line, you're not getting like a big blob of ink coming off. Right.
And then the other term that you used was round. Can you describe what that is for someone who's never used a brush before? Yeah, because you could have a flat, you can have you can have a wedge, you can have a round.
There's filbert, there's all kinds of different fans.
Fan, that's another one.
So a round. So if you were sort of looking directly at the brush, it has a round shape to it, and then pointed round means it's coming to a point. So there's some round brushes that don't have they don't taper quite to the same point.
Right. I think for certain oil painters, they tend to use certain styles. If you're trying to get a check.
Yeah, if you do a lot of like naturalistic painting, whether it's watercolor or oil paints, like the type of brush head that you have can help you make like certain leaf and petal shapes really easily.
Right. But I think for a starter at home, I think your average smaller art supply store, if you ask for a watercolor brush, they're probably going to have a tapered round.
Yes.
3 to 7, right?
Totally, yes. So it's pretty typical to find that.
Well, then, and while we're on the topic, now you had said something really wonderful for beginners yesterday. You said, there is the top of the line, but your suggestion was...
My suggestion is not to go for the top of the line fanciest sable brush that you can find.
Right.
And actually go like one range down. Most brands have like their top of the line, and then they have they have like a student grade and maybe a professional grade, and then that top line super fancy one.
Right.
The reason I say that is because the really nice, really fancy ones, which are great, I'm not saying not to eventually get there, but they're so like elegant and light that they pick up the tiniest wobble in your hand. And when you're just learning, you're going to have that wobble. You're getting used to it. You have a death grip on the brush, like you're trying to make it be smooth.
And you get judgy about your own line. I was like, oh my God, it looks like I've just had 6 cups of coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
When I was doing it yesterday.
And you're going slow because it's new. And when you're moving slowly, that wobble is going to be there. And as you gain confidence and you move quicker, then the wobble goes away.
Right.
And so having a super light brush is just, it's not helping you in that learning process. But if you have one already, you already bought one, somebody gave it to you, whatever, you can tape it up to add more weight to it. You can add wooden coffee stirrers, tape those to it, a lot of times the handles are a little shorter too, so that can give the handle some length.
Right.
All of that can like make it a little easier to grip onto, so you're not quite so wobbly.
So yesterday, Scott McLeod, who is also here, was mentioning, and I don't think this is ill-formed to mention this, he was saying he puts a foam, I don't know what you would call it, a sleeve around his Wacom pens and around his pens to help out his overall grip in his wrist. And again, I don't think that's talking out of school to repeat that. But anyway, have you ever seen something akin to that for brushwork for people that might have hand problems or grip problems?
I saw something which I thought was really clever. Is somebody had it's like a foam Band-Aid. And so it already has adhesive on 2 ends, like, it's a regular Band-Aid, but it had a lot of like cushiness to it.
So depending on where you want to place your finger, you could find the spot that worked for you.
Band-Aid, and then you had like a nice foamy grip built in.
That's right. Well, and I should mention, in case the audio just picked that up, that's the first sound we've had in 20 minutes of talking, the truck going by at distance. But it's funny because there's so few sounds here in Alaska that when you do hear one, you're like, what's happening? The world's ending. Yeah.
The plane's coming in from
exactly. Okay, so, but the thing that I noticed as a newbie is how much ink a brush can hold over a large amount of inking. I mean, I was doing a fair amount of line work, and I was like, this still has ink to go.
Going.
I'm still going strong.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that, about like the quality of a brush, the size of a brush, the volume of ink that it can hold comparatively. Like what are you looking for if that's a concern of yours?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of why over time, as I got more comfortable with it, I moved up in size to a 3 and 4, knowing that it could get just as fine of a point, but it holds even more ink.
Okay, so a 0, for example, would have a finer point, obviously, because it has less sable in it.
Exactly.
But it's 3 or 4 with practice and knowing where you are in the ink quantity in the brush, right? You can, and that's what the tipping would come into.
Yeah, and it'll last me for like a significant part of a really detailed panel, maybe even a whole page without having to dip multiple times with that 3, because it just has a much more bulbous like reservoir.
Yeah. And speaking of spot blacks, I remember, I don't remember where. Oh, it was at a studio. Jeff Smith was doing something, and the amount of black that you can put down on a page, if you're coming from something like even a Faber-Castell fat pit, those fat ones that they have,
the bullet points
that do have a lot of ink of them.
Yes.
But the amount of ink that a good sized brush can put down, if you need it on a page, is bonkers.
Oh yeah, and you get like a nice, like a rich black too, because you can really customize whatever ink you like using, as opposed to sometimes the pens are great and obviously they're easy to travel with, but they can have sort of a grayer, like a super dark gray.
There's a luminosity through the paper that's coming through that creates a gray, I think. Because let's talk about inks for a minute, because we haven't talked about that. So if I'm a beginner and I'm going to either online or a good size art store, I'm usually confronted with a choice of 3 or 4, let's say, brands and types within those brands. Do you want to talk us through what those might be?
Let's see. Yeah, I think the classic one is Speedball, which is a type of India ink. That one's great. Like, pretty tried and true. It can, with a lot of inks, they can get a little gummy over time because the water is evaporating from them. So you can add water to them. You just have to be careful, like,
the results
not too
might
much, because you may be diluting it a little too much.
And the gumminess you would describe as just it's more viscous. Is that the way to describe it?
Yeah, it's just getting a little thicker.
Okay.
It's like maybe going to be drying faster on your brush, so you may have to like gently like tip your brush into some water just to kind of loosen it up a bit.
Right.
But you can usually reconstitute it and to a good consistency with a little bit of water. There's
so that's Speedball. Sorry,
that's Speedball. Yeah. There's I think Winsor Newton is the one that has a little. Am I thinking of the right? Or it's either Winsor Newton or it has a little spider on it. There's like a little label with a spider.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yes, it has kind of an antique-y, like Charlotte's Web kind of. Yeah.
That one's great. I think that was the one I used yesterday.
And that was really nice, by the way. I enjoyed that ink.
I hadn't used that one in a while. Deleter, which is a manga brand of art supplies, they make a whole range of different inks that some are shiny, some are matte, some are super black. Like I think there's like 6 of them, and they're different, denoted by different color labels. Those are really great, but it's a very small quantity and they can be a little pricey.
Right.
But I remember I really like that ink a lot. But the one that is my go-to is Platinum Carbon ink.
You mentioned this yesterday, which I 100% will be buying when I get home.
Yeah, so this is a fountain pen ink, which you typically see in capsules for refillable fountain pens.
Right.
But you can buy a jar, and what I like about the jar is it has a little cylinder device in the well. So when the well is closed, the cap is sealed on it, you flip it upside down and you flip it right side up again, and it fills this little well the perfect amount of ink, and the rest of it is under, so it's not as exposed to the air.
Right.
And then when you dip your brush in, it's like the perfect length. The idea being you dip your fountain pen in there and it doesn't get on the handle.
Oh, that would be what that. Okay.
And so then you can pull the lever to fill your reservoir.
Right. But it just so happens that for the length and depth of a brush, it's also great. Yeah,
it's pretty perfect. And the ink dries really fast and it's waterproof on the paper, but I find that it doesn't dry on the brush very fast for some reason. And so like I've set my brush down to go get a coffee or run to the bathroom, whatever, come back and I like don't have to dip it in water or anything. It's like still ready to go.
Right.
I'm like, what is this weird magic
What is
ink?
this
That's
magical ink? Take a call, go see a friend, come home, still ready to go. Yeah. But I mean, not to make the bad pun, but like very often when I'm dipping directly into an inkwell, which doesn't have this feature, it's literally a black hole. You don't know. Sometimes you don't know how far you've gone in or going in or need to go in. And so talk for a second for a first-time brush user, how much ink you want to put on the sable. Like let's say the sable is, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch or half inch. Or it doesn't matter what the length is.
It doesn't matter the length. You want to try to only get it about halfway down the bristles.
Yep.
More than and if it gets further up, it's fine. If it touches the ferrule, which is the metal piece that connects the brush to the handle.
Is it called ferrule because it's from an animal? Is that what that is?
It's spelled different.
Oh, darn it. I wanted that to be. I wanted that to be.
French word.
Can I have that? Can we just pretend that? No, okay. But anyway,
you're gripping the animal by its neck.
Yeah, exactly. But the reason why you don't want the ink to get up in there is
it just gets harder to clean. If that part's going to dry faster because you're using the ink on the tip of the brush, it's going to dry faster. It's harder to clean, and then you're sort of rubbing it more. Rubbing it more basically to try to get the ink off of it, which then could, you're wearing away the bristles coming to a nice tip over time.
Right.
And you may have to cut them or it's just going to start splitting. And
And this is jumping ahead, but let's jump ahead to cleaning and then we'll come back to the actual inking process because this actually directly ties into why you want to have a certain amount of ink on your brush. So when you're done, I've finished my hour, 2 hour, 4 hours of inking. And you said, by the way, how many pages can you get done using a brush now? Because you caught me off guard by how much you could do now.
I mean, I've definitely done 8 to 10 in a day. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm really
but that's sort of the joy of a brush is that you can go fast and long in terms of like... It's good.
And the other thing that's part of that is that I started working on a flat surface as opposed to an angled surface, which a lot of people draw at an angled surface.
Right.
Which I do as well.
I make that mistake though with brushwork.
But I flattened my surface down for inking, and that there was no like wrist pain or anything. And I, even after doing 8 or 10 pages, I'm like, I'm good. I'm done for the day, but like I have no wrist pain. So that was a big game changer.
And we'll talk about wrist positioning in a second when we talk about drawing, but let's jump back real quick just for
the cleaning. Yes.
Because there's a specific product that I, as a younger cartoonist, had never heard of. And once you hear of it, you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah. The Master Brush Cleaner.
Yes. Yeah.
Comes in a little beige, round,
almost like a summer lip balm type size package.
Giant. Well, there's little ones.
There's the little travel ones. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a brush conditioner. I'm not sure exactly how they market it. And and I also have a like an olive oil brush soap. I think it's just like
a big bar.
It's like a bar, and it's made by Escoda, so it is a brush brand.
Escoda, by the way, for those listening, is Escoda, right?
Yes, I
think it's a Spanish brand.
Yes. Yeah, there's like one brush company for each. Like,
the Germans have their, the French have their,
French
exactly.
one,
The Japanese
English
have,
ones, American ones. So you always cold water, because if there is any sort of like glue adhesive being used to make the brush, you don't want hot water to be melting that glue holding the bristles in. So always running cold water, sort of rub the brush on the palm of your hand and then rub it in the conditioner. Yeah. And then run it under the water again until basically the water's coming out clear that you've gotten all.
And for those listening home, it's literally the palm of your hand. You can make the tiniest little cup that holds a percentage of soap, a percentage of water, and you're just giving it a gentle swirl in the palm of your hand.
It doesn't have to be vigorous or anything. And then you want to sort of rub it back do the tipping again with a clear brush so you get that point again, and then store it upright.
Right. And you also had a wonderful tip that I had never heard of before, of a crocodile, which I'd never heard of until yesterday. Yes. So tell me a bit about a crocodile.
So a crocodile, I saw this in somebody's Instagram, it's sort of in the background of their desk, and it was this kind of fancy vase that was holding all their brushes, and I sent it to my mom, who's does a lot of like vintage shopping and thrifting, and she's really good at finding things. I'm like, have you ever seen anything like this? Do you know what this is? She's like, oh, it's a crocodile. It's meant for flower arranging. So it's essentially a vase that has a sort of metal grate on top and inside the vase that you're meant to like put individual flowers through, and then they stay in a certain position.
To keep pleasant separation, basically for flowers.
Exactly. And so she found one for me. So I have this sort of thing, and I just put all my brushes in it, and then I can see, the different sizes I have and stuff.
And again, for folks listening, another thing about antiquing is because inkwells were so in use around last turn of the century, one of the things I found is you can get some inkwells for pennies on the dollars at an antique store, because who needs them except for us?
Yeah, or they're like, what even is this thing?
And you might be saying, well, Dave, why do I need an inkwell? Some of them have lovely built-in weights and tipping areas also, depending on what kind of design
and
you
good
get.
Like rests that have like grooves and stuff.
Right, so if you do need to go to the restroom or something like that, you can set it down.
Across the page. Yeah, another great thing is serrated pots of any kind that have a serrated lip on them.
Oh,
so you can lay
like a ceramic, or what do you mean?
Yeah, it could be made out of anything. It just has like that sort of
just something to lay a brush across.
You lay a brush, and it's not flat, so it's not going to roll.
Not going to roll. Okay.
Yeah. Dave, well, we got a little break in the action. We should tell our listeners about the sponsor of today's show, DreamHost.
That's right. DreamHost has been both Brad and I host of choice for years now.
Yes.
Brad was able to convince me of it with high praise. And I was like, you know what? If it's good enough for my friend Brad's good enough for me. It jumped in. I absolutely loved it. And then they absolutely wanted to sponsor the show, which was such an easy decision for us because we cannot say enough nice things about DreamHost as a host and a service.
Absolutely. I've been with DreamHost for over 10 years, and that's for all of my sites. Yeah. That goes for webcomics.com, Evil Inc. All the sites that I do are all done through DreamHost. And so, like Dave said, when a sponsorship opportunity like that pops up, you can't say no to it, which is why we want you to check out dreamhost.com/comiclab, where you can find out some of the hosting plans that they built just for the Comic Lab listener. Starting with the shared starter plan, which is the first 3 years locked in at $2.59 a month. Now, when you go over to dreamhost.com/comiclab, you'll see everything that's included there, including free domain, unlimited traffic, a WordPress installer, free automated WordPress migrations. If you're like Dave and you want to move over from a different host, you can come over and you can move your website right over to DreamHost.
Absolutely. I did the same thing. I used their installer and all the WordPress installer and the migrations. Made it so easy for me. I moved both Drive and Sheldon over in very quick fashion years ago myself. Have loved it. And I will say that one of the greatest things about DreamHost for me is that occasionally, not in any way that's DreamHost's fault, I mess something up. I click something that I shouldn't. Yeah. Their customer service and their technical service and support is fantastic. It is personal. It is a human. Yep. They will take you through it. They will fix the problem. And it has been a godsend for a cartoonist like me who is not the technically most savvy person in the world. I do make mistakes from time to time, and they lovingly put me right back on the right path. And I will mention, so Brad mentioned the first plan that they have at $259 a month. They also have a $395 a month plan. And again, this is for 3 years. You can lock that in at $395. Yeah. That is bonkers good rate. But that'll also have unlimited websites. Again, free domains included, unlimited traffic, again with the WordPress installer, a laundry list of amazing features. So both of these are over at dreamhost.com/comiclab, and Brad and I can't recommend them enough.
Absolutely. If you listen to our show, you know that we're passionate about getting comics artists to own and control your own work. Well, having a website...
Central to what we do.
Yes. And having a website is the first step in that. Also, one thing that I don't think we've mentioned in previous installments here is that you get analytics with this too. We've got a few questions coming in through Patreon that say, hey, now that I've got a website, or now that I'm paying attention to my website again, what are you doing for analytics? And I got to be honest with you, I used to use Google Analytics. They did a big update. And again, it was one of those ROI things where it's like, am I really going to get anything that's jumping through all these hoops for this new? And it wasn't just like push button. I had to do a bunch of stuff.
No, because there was a lot of copy pasting the new code in and all that sort of nonsense.
And of course, that's when I screw things up. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to do it. I don't care, because I've always said, the thing I always watch closely is my Patreon. That's how I tell. But if you are interested in things like that, and by the way, I do open up the DreamHost Analytics and check it out every now and again when I've got questions I need answered. They have very good analytics available to you, and you can check that out. You don't have to mess with Google Analytics. I also, Dave, I don't know that I trust Google Analytics anymore, but I don't have to worry about it. DreamHost has my analytics right there, and they do everything that I need them to do.
And a final thing to mention over at dreamhost.com/comiclab is they've got a 97-day money-back guarantee, which I personally love, because it's like, hey, 90 days? What if we gave you 7 more? You got 97 days to get your money-back guarantee. So do yourself a favor, do your career a favor. Go check out dreamhost.com/comiclab. Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics. All right, well, let's jump into the actual brushwork process. I found, as a newbie, within about 40 minutes of your kind instruction, I was actually getting pretty good, having already done 10,000 hours and understanding my hand, but not being good at the brush. How, for folks that are just getting started, how would you describe or suggest they jump into brushwork?
Well, I can start with the advice that I got from Jeff Smith. Okay. Actually, I just started.
Look at us both dropping names. Bam, here we go. This is great. We both did it.
It was kind of like
I've met Jeff Smith. I've met Jeff Smith too. This is great.
It was sort of magical timing. I had just started doing this webcomic with a friend. I had just started using a brush. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this whole project. And I met him. I told him I was starting with a brush. I was like, do you have any advice? Because, he is like a master brush user. And he said, just commit to using it for a whole project, and you'll learn more doing that than any tutorial could really teach you.
Right.
And he was right. Like by probably about 15 pages in, something clicked, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get the hang of this. Like it even started to change my drawing a little bit, knowing what strokes are easy, what's difficult. And I never looked back after that.
Yeah. And then let's talk about wrist positioning now that we're going into brushwork, because you had a suggestion, both flattening your surface, bringing the height of your desk down if you have it tilted, but you also had a wrist suggestion that I hadn't heard of, and I thought it was really helpful.
The perpendicular?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, unlike when you're holding a pencil, the pencil's almost at like a 45-degree angle.
Right.
Like if you're drawing.
Right.
With a brush, you're almost holding it so that the brush is perpendicular to the paper. So it's like the handle is straight up as you're holding it. Again, because you want to focus on just the fine tip, and then choosing the parts where you want your line art to be thicker.
Right.
And in that case, you're sort of bringing the brush closer to the paper. And yeah, so you're kind of balancing on your pinky a little bit as you're moving, and I try to focus on like more of a shoulder movement, but
wrist, yeah.
And but holding it perpendicular is a little wonky for people. It's like not how we typically hold any sort of writing instrument. But doing that and just focusing on that fine point is sort of the way to start.
And this might be a vanishingly small group of people for whom this is helpful, but it felt to me how, like, if you ever played Little League as a kid and then someone tried to teach you golf, or played golf as a kid and someone tried to teach you Little League, it's just a fundamentally different way to hold it. And that you just have to be prepared for that.
You have to learn how to untrain what you're used
exactly.
to. Yes.
Yeah, because your muscles are going to want to do it one way, which is what my hand was trying to do. It kept trying to bring it down to pencil 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
And...
But I think
after about 40 minutes of trying it, I did have to sit there and go, nope, upright, keep it upright, you know, and make the adjustment up and down, not in terms of a 45-degree angle.
Yeah, or not, not like pressing too hard. Or
yes.
Like, it's not like a squeezing of your fingers, which feels like when you're trying to make a darker line with a pencil, it's almost like you're squeezing the pencil.
Right, and just by comparison, using technical pens or microns or Faber-Castell pits, the sort of backward strategy that I developed to get thinner to thicker lines was to do what Hirschfeld used to do, which is thousands of little lines that add up to a big line.
Right.
But I will tell you, one of the reasons why you can do 8 pages and I can't is probably because that tires the heck out of my wrist, and probably also is just a gripping power that you don't have to fight with on a brush. So
and I think that's part of what I know when I noticed with the angle change of the inking surface is it must be using like a different fine motor skill. Because like with the pencil, I'm totally fine drawing at an angle, but inking at an angle was like activating like some sort of like micro movement that I was doing was did not like that angled position. Yeah, and so flattening it out, it's easier with that. It's easier to have that like lighter touch, maybe even because I'm not like, I don't know, balancing.
Yeah, neither you nor I know the physics of it. But remember how a couple minutes ago you were talking about how you're very aware that you are wobbling and that the effort you're creating is creating tiny wobbles. I feel like something about that physics is incorrect for the way the brush wants to move in terms of holding it upright versus holding it at a 45-degree angle. Yeah. So, the other thing I should say is I draw toward myself. Like if you think about how you your hand this was
moves,
really helpful.
How your hand moves when you're sketching. In general, I would say I'm like moving the pencil toward myself. But when I'm inking away from myself. And that was another big change because you can see the line that you're inking a bit easier. And I'm also always moving the paper or whatever way
whatever it needs to go. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm inking away so I can really see the line that I'm trying to cover. If you're trying to ink toward yourself, your hand blocks where the
sort of
line
the top
is.
of your pointer knuckle blocks what you're trying to see.
Yeah, so you're sort of guessing a little bit as you're trying to ink. And it's just you start to notice it's like an awkward way to ink.
And so for me, just having those two basic points of like, try to keep it upright, try to go away from you, were eye-opening. Because it's not intuitive if you've been doing technical pens your whole life, you know. So now what can someone expect on their first 15 pages? Because you had said, Jeff Smith said, commit it to a project. Are they pages that you kind of will eventually go, well, I'm redrawing these 15? Or are they...
I mean, I think I stuck with... I don't think I changed too much about them. I may have gone back and, if anything, I would have adjusted the faces to make sure that they were consistent.
Right.
But no, I kind of accepted the wobbliness. And I also think there's something kind of cool about seeing someone's progress through, like actually being able to see the progress on the page as like... even as a reader or someone who just like likes comic, like, oh wow, you can see the change. You see the change, you see their evolution, you see like their skill increasing as you read their work.
I have mixed feelings about that because I like seeing it in other artists. I very much dislike seeing it. I feel like I'm an imposter when I see it in myself and I don't like it. because we're operating under Chatham House rules here, I won't say what cartoonist said it yesterday, but they were giving a talk, and they said a suggestion that was given to them was start in the middle of the book or in some non-sequential part of the book, so that it sort of hides that technical skill problem in the book itself. And I'd never thought about that. I don't know if I could do it, but I was like, you know what, I respect it.
Yeah. Also, although part of me is like, well, then all of a sudden, really does it like, that face is really
You're like,
funky.
this artist has it going on. They're so good. And then like, oh, what happened? Did they have a fall? What was going on around page 78? Yeah, exactly. So what, now we've talked about the physical process of what you should do when you're starting brush work. What can you do with a brush that you cannot do? You started talking about this before in terms of thickness, thinness.
Yes.
But there's also... And again, this might be because I do that sort of Hirschfeld process of 1,000 lines equaling 1 line. There's an energy to a brush that nothing else can, like even a quill can't do what a brush can do in terms of the energy within a single line.
Totally, yeah. And part of this is determined by like your general style and like the kind of like mark making that you like to make. And I have a smoother style. Some people have more of a drier style. Some people have a really dense style, but you can get all of those things with the one tool. You really can. You can, if you're really into hatching or cross hatching or adding like feathering, it's so easy to do with the brush, and you're like, you can do it all with just those single tool. And I experiment with some of that, and I usually go back to my sort of cleaner style. Well,
let's talk about one last technique maybe for folks, and then we can because this has been a great starter for someone who's never encountered someone who has brush proficiency. Talk to us a little bit about what a dry brush technique is, because this is something that's very unique. Well, not 100% unique, but very unique to a brush that I only rarely can do with usually a felt type of pen at the end of its life.
End of its life.
And you have to wait weeks sometimes to get to there. You know? And you don't know how long it'll last. So
and the tip may not be the same kind of consistency.
Right, may not be what you want. Yeah, exactly. But you can repeat it with a brush. So let's talk about dry brush technique.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One is you can flatten out the bristles. So if you have a round brush and you have the nice point on it, you sort of take it between your fingers and flatten it out to spread the bristles out. You have a scrap sheet of paper, you're getting that excess ink off. You may have to redip it, but then you're wiping the ink off so that it's just sort of down to the wire, and you can get that that nice dry effect. The other thing is the paper type. So
talk about that.
So a lot of people use some sort of smooth Bristol board or a hot press watercolor paper. Those have smoother surfaces. Right. The dry effect isn't going to show up as much on those. But if you have a vellum surface or some sort of rough texture to the paper you're using, that'll bring out more of that dry brush effect. Right. The other thing is using brush pens, which I do think get easier to use once you've had a lot of practice on it with a real brush. Right. They tend to have a much fatter brush head, and the ink from the capsules that are, when they're refillable, it takes a little bit longer for it to flow into the bristles. So if you try to go fast with a brush pen, you reach that dry brush effect much faster. You do, yeah. And Carl Kerschel, who I don't know if you know Carl, but uses a brush pen when he's traveling a lot, and he very quickly gets to a dry technique. And it's like, but because he's doing a lot of animal work, it's great for shading. It's great for chiaroscuro. It's great for all that sort of stuff. So he uses it with great efficiency. But one thing I didn't ask you, of the brands of ink, which are they light fast? Are they waterproof? What can you use them with or in conjunction with watercolors? What's that like? What is that world for inks, black inks? For the most part, with the India inks, I believe most of them are waterproof, which is nice. Not all of them. And fountain pen ink can be kind of tricky there. Like that's not necessarily. It's not.
This is the one that's platinum carbon.
Platinum carbon ink is waterproof, but not a lot of fountain pen ink is not waterproof. Okay. So it's definitely something you want to check. If it's not on the bottle, it probably is on the company website. Like is it light fast and all those things? They're not all light fast. I think probably most bottled ink probably is light fast. I don't know for sure on that. I know Speedball and like the platinum carbon ink, they have a pretty good
And for those not familiar with it, Lightfast is, if you've ever seen a 20-year-old Sharpie drawing,
yes,
the black will fade to like an
like
orangey
purple,
red or purple, yeah, depending on what kind of light, the Sharpie you get, But what's happening basically is its mere existence in the world and the presence of light hitting it, it sort of bleaches it out, right? Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, it's fading over time. Yeah.
So one of the famous things with India ink and good Inkwell inks, the good ones, is light fastness that you'll still essentially get. I mean, sometimes
you can hang it on the wall in front of a window and it won't fade over time.
Yeah, and so I have a couple comics from pre-World War I that look like they were drawn yesterday, and frankly, the inks are better. I mean, part of it is because they can't sell those kind of inks anymore.
Yeah. Wink, probably yes. I mean, although the tape and stuff are glue that they use.
Oh yeah, just eats away.
That's
and
eating away.
Yellow, and it looks like someone had some sort of bad snot scenario that happened on the corner. But the inks are tremendous, and they're in some respects better than any technical pen I will ever use, in that they might have an extra 20, 30 years on them, I think, if it's the right kind of ink.
Yeah, and the bottled ones, you tend to get like a nice rich black. And
you do, and you really do not get any paper coming through if you're doing it right.
And if you do pencil on paper and you're erasing after the fact, it still stays that rich black.
Yes,
which with a lot of tech
you're right,
pens,
it does.
That's the one thing where I'm like, no, this tech pen is great, but like now it's gray.
Yeah, because if you get a technical pen in like, let's say, the last 20 to 30% of its life, and it's still for the most part putting down good ink. Yes. But you're right, when you erase over with a plastic eraser or it just, there's a little lift and you're like, it'll scan all right, but when you look at it on a page, it's not going to be the greatest.
That's the same thing. The other thing I'll say with all of this really, and I say this to students that I've worked with, is it's not just the brush, it's not just the ink, it's not just the paper, it's really the combination of all three of those things. Like finding the three that give you the finishing effect that you want. So like we were saying with the textured paper giving you more of the dry brush effect. I tell my students a lot about when I was working on AOK, I had this pad of really nice 500 series, 100% cotton Bristol board, and it's still in the plastic. And I was like, I'm a professional. I should use this nice paper. I've had it waiting.
I'm going to treat myself. I deserve, you know what?
Why not?
Why not?
Last 15 pages of my book, it'll be like red carpet walk to the finish line.
I can see where this is going. Red carpet walk to the finish line.
And so I print out my blue lines onto this nice paper, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And it's like brighter white, so I can see it as the stack is getting closer to those 15 pages. I'm like, oh, it's coming. Here are the nice pages.
You deserve this. You deserve this.
My beautiful platinum carbon ink. Immediately as it touches that nice 100% cotton paper, it spreads like crazy. It does not work on the fancy paper. And suddenly now at the finish line, I'm like calling up my neighbor. I'm like, do you have any other kind of ink that I can use? And it was Speedball, and it was, years old, and it was all gummy. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to use this. I gotta like keep adding all this water, and now it's slowing my progress. Oh my gosh, it was a pain in the butt.
For a dramatic effect, I want everybody to know that as you were describing that story, a 20-pound raven just flew behind your head. And it was like, quote the raven nevermore on that. That was great. But okay, so now let's finish it off with someone who now has heard what you've had to say and wants to dive into brushwork. Let's give them, if they've got $50 in their pocket.
Okay.
What's the brush to get? What's the ink to get? What's the brush wash to get? And maybe a paper that you're like, you can't go wrong if you start with these four things.
I think for paper, tried and true is 300 series Strathmore. That's the yellow pads that you can find at like Michael's and most arts and crafts stores. I think that's a great starter paper. Okay. Often there are coupons, it goes on sale, things like that. Ink.
I love that dad energy. That's great. Kids, wait for the coupons. Hey, you know what? Listen, the art life is not easy. Wait for those coupons.
Not sponsored, but there is always a Black Friday sale every year at a certain store that for paper,
you can say the store. It's okay. You can say the store.
Michael's. I do love the platinum carbon ink. That's probably one you won't find in your everyday craft store. That's the one thing
I really am thankful to you for that, because I've never encountered that. So I'm actually going to go look for that one.
I think I got it on like a free table somewhere. That's how I even tried it in the first place. As far as brushes, I I have a tendency to love the Raphael line. I think it's 8404 and 8408 are the two pointed round series that they have that are Klinsky sable. For starting out though, Winsor Newton Artist Watercolor series, which is the series under Series 7. Series 7 is their top of the line.
I think it has a black stem, right? Or gray,
it has like
black
has
stem?
like a gray, almost navy blue handle on it.
Oh, navy blue.
That has two sort of bulbous points.
Yeah, which I found helpful actually.
Yeah, it's a little longer, a little bit more of a grip to it. That's the one that I used when I was first starting out, and I used it until it wore away. Pretty much. Yeah.
And then final question. I know I keep saying final thing, but we've got those supplies out on our desk. Oh wait, was the soap you were recommending?
Oh yeah. The Master Art
Master Art.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can find that pretty easily.
Okay, and then I'm now at my flat desk that you've recommended. I'm now holding my pen upright, or my brush, upright. I'm ready to go. Lay out for me. I've got my drink on a different surface that's lower than my table, right? So my coffee is on a different surface.
So
we've all made that mistake.
Safe location.
Yeah, it's at a safe location. But oh God, there's a chipmunk over there. Oh, hi, chipmunk. Sorry. Oh, he's coming towards us now. I'm scared. Go away, chipmunk. No, get out of here, nature.
He's so little.
He's so little. Okay, but let's talk about because it's not intuitive. There is an extra piece of scrap paper.
Yes.
Where do you put that?
I typically put that like right under where the ink. So it's on. I'm right-handed, so I usually have my. I would say order of operations is a thing of water, which you really only need for the end or right at the beginning to kind of make sure your brush is at a point.
Yep. And I've seen that in like either a small throwaway cup or maybe in sometimes those little soy plates that are really low. You know what I mean? The ones that you put soy or
really shallow dish of any kind. Yeah. I usually have a paper towel or a cloth towel so you can get some of that excess water off. And then your scrap sheet of paper. Typically, it's a scrap of the actual paper that I'm inking on right under the ink jar.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. So to make sure you have the feel before you have the feel. That's
making sure, especially if you're testing like some new.
Yeah, because I'm usually using just scrap paper, but that's a bad. This is how you know you're talking to a pro.
Or I mean, depending on how much of the paper you're using for your. The actual comic page, if you have a significant border around the edges, you could also use that to tip your brush as well.
True. Yeah, I have seen that in old pages for the masters.
Cool.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool
like, when you see it.
Stuff in the margins. And then that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the setup. And then the soap I keep by the sink.
Right.
And then I have a lot of like jars or mugs and things where I can store the brushes upright and the crocodile as well.
And for those that might know that you need a break or you need your day is scheduled such you have to step up, the serrated bowl or something to hold a pen or the brush horizontally. I keep saying pen. Isn't that funny? How stuck I am in my ways. But this has been great. I'm so thankful to you both for teaching the class yesterday and for sharing your knowledge on this because I think a lot of people, myself included, we're most immediately proficient with a technical pen, so we lean in on that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But there is a magic and a utility and an ease with a brush that I know I need in my years to master, and you have helped me along that way. So thank you, Jarad, for doing that, and thank you for talking.
Absolutely.
And I do want to go check out Scullion. I want to make sure I got the title right because that sounds like so Scullion, A Dishwasher's Guide to Mistaken Identity. That was Oni.
Yes.
Is that still available if I will look for it, or can I find it in the library at this point?
You can definitely find it in the library.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then A-OK and A for Effort. Yes. Give us the size, give us the layout. If we haven't seen it before, what are they? Are they vertical? Are they horizontal? Are they 5x9, 6x9? Whatever.
Oh gosh, yeah, they're like.
Are they manga size? Or are they?
They're like typical middle grade graphic novel size, like 5.5 by 7.5, something like that.
And when you say middle grade, because there are, I'm coming to learn this from Raina and other people, that there are gradations within the gradations. So tell me what ages this is the best for.
Yes. So middle grade runs from age 8 to 12. I would say they're on the upper end of that scale. So probably the 10 to 12 side of things.
As the acne especially starts kicking in, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. And because typically the age category follows the age of the main character.
Right.
So it's sort of skirting the line between middle grade and young adult as it's the character starting high school.
One thing I've never thought of with middle grade, is it aspirational reading? Like if you're 9, are you reading 10-11 or are you reading 10-11 if you're 10-11?
That's a good question. You know, because I always felt like kids sometimes like to read a couple of years
because
beyond their actual age. You want
to feel like you're. I'm the smart one.
I understand the older kids.
Yeah, I'm not like those other kids.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, I guess it probably varies on the kid now that I'm asking it out loud.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyway, thank you, my friend, for doing this. This has been an absolute delight. Thank you for teaching a class yesterday. Thank you for being a wonderful human being. And absolutely go check out Jared's work. Delightful human being. And thank you for your time.
Anytime.
Dave, that was a fantastic interview. I want to thank Jarad Greene so much for sharing his time with us. I really now want to try a brush.
Absolutely. And well worth the effort. It's a unique thing in cartooning to master. I will be honest, I'm 25 years in, have not yet mastered it, but Jared's class at Comics Camp and then this conversation were so helpful in getting me started. And I think honestly, now everyone else has the tools to get started in terms of the 5 to 6 things they need to go buy. You don't need to break the bank, and the 5 or 6 tips you need to get started. And again, all doable, and thanks to Jarad. So Jarad, I want to give a huge shout out to Jarad's 3 books, A-OK, A for Effort, and Scullion, A Dishwasher's Guide to Mistaken Identity. Jarad is a lovely human being and an even lovelier cartoonist. Absolutely go support their work. A-OK, A for Effort, and Scullion, A Dishwasher's Guide to Mistaken Identity.
And there's no mistaking the identity of the podcast you've been listening to. It's Comic Lab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my friend Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com, the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com, and the co-host of the fantastic new drawing show over at wrongwayshow.com.
And my good friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped, and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com, and another one of the fantastic co-hosts along with Kevin McShane of our new drawing show at wrongwayshow.com.
And the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode was edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love Comic Lab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. You may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify, where we are burning up the podcast charts.
And Comic Lab is made possible by your support at patreon.com/Comic Lab. So we'll go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/blinded by Brad's head. The one thing about ALA, Brad, is that be prepared for a community of people that know everything there is to know about wearing comfortable shoes to an event. Because
I'll bet.
It is a thing that I noticed at past ALAs is that librarians are on it. They know, they're like nurses. They know the best shoes to wear if you're going to be on your feet for 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
They are on it in the comfortable shoe department.
I've got a lot of respect for librarians just in general. And it happened over COVID, when I found out that like they were basically you could check out a COVID test the same way you check out a book, quote unquote. You didn't have to bring it back, obviously, but they were making stuff like that available. And I know different libraries that check out all kinds of things like kitchen equipment and tools and stuff like that. And it's the first place that you can go that nobody thinks of when you need things in your community. I just have such respect for librarians. They're literally on the front lines.
Yeah, and are like one of the key bits of glue keeping society together.
Yes.
Honest to God, and that's the honest to God truth.
And people say it all the time. It's one of the few places you can go where you're not expected to make a purchase.
Yes,
right?
And they're also so happy to help you when you go up to the reference desk and be like, I'm genuinely lost. How do I find this thing? My infinite respect to the Los Angeles Public Library, by the way, because you mentioned COVID. Yeah. I found a book recently, Brad, that I had checked out before quarantine.
Oh, no.
So this is a longer story than you need, but it was on one of my sub accounts because I had my kids had sub accounts through my name, right? And so somehow the emails weren't coming through that this book was being recorded as lost to the LA Public Library. So my fines were $242 at Los Angeles Public Library. So I brought the book back and I explained what happened, and the librarian goes, "Oh, great. Let's just waive that fine right now because the Los Angeles Public Library doesn't charge you if you ever bring the book back." Brad, it was 4 years out. I had that book for 4 years and they wiped the fee. I love every librarian and I hope you have a tremendous time at ALA.